This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Sean Cole, but the star of today's show is absolutely Michael Conti, the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series champion on iRacing, and a pleasure to have him in the studio today. Michael, thank you for joining me.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. This will be fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I've followed your career for many years. You're a young guy, so it's amazing for me to say that. So why don't we just get started with some basics? And before we get to what you've accomplished recently, how old are you? Where do you live? And just, a little bit about yourself real quick.
Yeah, I'm 17 years old, so relatively young for the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. Grown up in northern New Jersey. I've lived nowhere else all my life, so born and raised a New Jerseyan. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but we'll just say it's good. I've just, been doing this for a long time now and finally got to this level and, proud to be here.
Very cool. And you are definitely here, that's for sure. So outside of sim racing, do you have other hobbies or interests, things you do pursue?
Yeah, I play tennis for the school's junior varsity tennis team in the springs. That's pretty fun. I enjoy that. I'm not very good at it, but it's something to do, something to get me away from racing. Just occupy my time doing other things. I drum. Not currently. Don't really have the room for a drum set or any of that stuff, but I did drum many years ago, and I'd like to get back into it, but haven't really had the time between school and everything else that's been going on. It's been a little bit crazy around here lately, so. I'm a drummer. I play tennis. Like to listen to music. Definitely musically inclined, if you want to call it that. But as far as other sports go beside tennis, I should just probably keep me away from them. I'm not very good at it. So racing is definitely my thing. Probably you could call me a one-trick pony because football, basketball, baseball, it doesn't click with me. So
yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of things going on, though. I wouldn't call you quite a one-trick pony. All right, I want to talk to you. Again, I mentioned you are this year's champion of NASCAR, which is a huge thing in sim racing. But before we get to that, I know everybody's going to kill me if I don't ask you some real basics, like what kind of wheel and pedals do you use?
Yeah, it's the standard G27. Nothing modified, no real brake modifications or anything. I don't think I'm mechanically inclined enough to even install any of that stuff, so I've stayed away from it. I got the main performance pedals behind me, which are kind of cut off, but you can see them back there. They're one of the prototype sets. I ran them a little bit, ran them actually in the New Hampshire DWC race, and had pretty good luck with them, but it was just not a knock against them, but was just a little bit hesitant to get away from equipment that I've used for many years now and have proven to go to something that's arguably much better, but just didn't want to risk it. But I'll definitely be using them in the off season once Mike gets me hooked up with some of the newer parts that they're going to be on it. So I think they're actually shipping this week, the pre-orders, finally. So whoever got on the list first is going to get their sim pedals. So that's cool. But yeah, just the G27. It's 3 or 4 years old, nothing new. Use the H pattern. Don't really like the paddle shifters, so try to be as realistic as possible with the Cup car.
Cool.
And that's it. Yeah, nothing fancy here.
And you're just using standard G27 pedals when you're not on the main?
Yep, that's it.
Wow, fascinating. Not fascinating, but that's great for everybody else to hear because, again, a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on equipment, and I think a lot of times it is more for us than for what you need. All right, so like I mentioned, I've known you for a long time. You've been a top driver for a long time, but being a top driver and really getting into the DWC and really making a run at the championship, that's not just a casual thing. Was there a decision made by you at some point that said, hey, I really want to go after this?
I had a plan. When I joined iRacing back in 2009, I had a plan to use iRacing as a stepping stone into something bigger in the real world. So I knew that to get to that point, I'd have to get to the top of iRacing. And that's, of course, easier said than done. Only so many people can do that. So I started out racing the trucks a lot. And went to go drive the Cup car, which was on the old tire model at that point. So again, extremely difficult back then, probably more so than it is now to get a hold of. And I said to myself, gosh, I'm no better than a truck driver. I can never drive the Cup car. I'm not going to attempt it. I'm just going to stay in the truck series and just do well there. And eventually I got into the old Nationwide car, got on one of my first teams, was a team Backfire with some guys that ran the Nationwide car predominantly. And got pretty decent in that, then got in the Cup car, started doing pretty well. And then I think it was early 2011 they changed the pro format to what it was like for a couple of years where the top 10 in the A Series points would get in, I think similar to what the F1 Series does right now. So I got into that. I just squeaked in the first season. I think I finished 16th out of 16, so not very impressive, but it was good enough to get me in. Used the rest of that year up into the Pro Series to kind of like get a hold of things, and then ran the 2011 Pro Series. Finished 8th in points. Crashed a lot, which was fine. I learned a lot too. And then 2012 was my first DWC season when you and Darren sponsored me. So it was a long road to get there. It took a good 2.5 years to finally get into pro. So it wasn't a quick journey. It wasn't a fast track journey like a lot of guys do nowadays, just up to A. I mean, there's a lot more after the A license if you want to pursue it, and it's definitely a time commitment. Absolutely.
Yeah, it becomes a full-time job, I would
Oh,
imagine.
yeah.
So you went into this season, I mean, each season you got to kind of refocus. You
Right.
went into this season, and how are you feeling at the beginning of the season? What would you put your odds on when the season started?
0. Yeah, I told everybody I'm running a part-time schedule. I have to get my grades where they need to be because it was my junior year when the 2014 season started. So, of course, that's like the most important year that colleges look at. So I said, I'm just going to run this part-time. I'm going to pick out the tracks that I like and just do it until it's not fun anymore. My exact words. And Joe Cortez used that against me many times toward the end of the season. So we hadn't run very well in 2013. We were arguably a 15th place car at best. In 2012, when you guys were on board, we were competing for wins every week and finished second in the championship. So to go into 2013, we thought that we were going to compete and then weren't really good, so that was kind of a bummer. So in 2014, I didn't really know what to expect. So we got past Daytona, and then I got to a couple mile and a half in the beginning of the year where we struggled the year before and absolutely sucked again. So I was like, okay, nothing's changed. Still a part-timer. And then got to Texas in April, and my gosh, it was like a light switch flipped, and boom, competing for wins again, and ended up finishing second. And the build changed. They implemented the new rules package for 2014 with the ride heights and all that stuff that's extremely difficult to understand, for me at least. And then we were just really fast after that. The first race, and that was Pocono, we won that. Then finished second or third at Charlotte, then won Dover, had a bunch of top fives in the middle of the year, and then got off a little bit. And then toward the tail end of the year again, starting at Atlanta, we figured out some stuff with the front end, and boom, almost won Atlanta, had a really cool finish with Tom Lewandowski, so that was fun. Darlington, dominated most of that, got beat in fuel mileage. And then Homestead did pretty decent too, not as good as the other two, but we're good enough to hold on. But yeah, I didn't run a part-time schedule, needless to say. Once we started doing well, again, it was very fun. So I just figured, all right, I can't quit now. I was leading the points, like I had a 24 or 5-point lead into the chase that we had this year for the first time, and I was like, well, can't really give up now. So just went through with it, and it all worked out. I'm really glad though, because like you said, and everybody in this genre of games knows that it takes a ton of time to be at the top level of sim racing, whether it's in the F1 DWC, the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, or any top division in a respective class on iRacing or R Factor or Assetto Corsa, whatever you may play. It's extremely difficult to be at the top, and when you have the 50 best oval drivers in the world all together, a couple hundredths could make that difference between being first and 15th. So hours and hours and hours are spent every week just trying to get to that point.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. So, you did this, and you cited moments where you guys were having difficulties. You ran with a relatively small team. I mean, compared
That's
to a
right.
lot of the big teams. Did that make it more difficult? I mean, what's it like? I mean, how did a small group, J-Show Racing, that's who you're running with, right?
Right, J-Show Motorsports, yep.
And how many guys are there on the team total?
Honestly, and I know that my teammates won't get mad at me when I say this, it's really just two people building the setups. It's Tom Lewandowski, he's like the main guy, and then I help him as much as I can. He's taught me a ton in the last couple of years that I worked with him about how the garage works, and I think I can pretty much hold my own, but he'll kind of get something like a base, and then I can kind of go from that and tune on it and optimize it, if you will. But
Right.
my other two teammates that run, Danny Hansen, Brian Schoenberg, we keep them away from the garage. They're very good racers, some of the best out there. Definitely could win a championship if everything fell right for them, but they're just not very good with the garage. So we keep them out of there, which is fine. Everybody's got their role in the team. Another guy, Jason Loafing, who was one of the top sim racers a couple years ago, actually won the Landon Castle qualifying challenge back a couple years ago. Chips in when he can too, but he's kind of like, removed himself from sim racing. He's doing college and pursuing some other things, so he's not around too much. So it's just Tom and I for the most part. And the way I kind of look at it, when we're on top and better than everybody else, having a small team is the best thing in the world, because you don't have 10 or 15 other people with the same setup. So you kind of can like separate yourselves a little bit. But when you're off and trying to find speed, only having 2 people and kind of being on an island all by yourself is just not optimal. So, in 2013 when we were off, we could never seem to get back on. But in 2014 when we were good, it took people a long time to catch back up to us. So, there's 2 sides to the coin. It's always better to be on the side where you're faster than everybody else, but it's not always the case. But I enjoy.
Did that enough, though.
We did enough. I mean, we were off a little bit this year, but we got back on, which was good, relatively quickly. But I enjoy being on a smaller team. I've been on bigger teams before, and it's just, you get to know people better when you're on a smaller team. You get to build personal relationships with people when there's not a revolving door on the TeamSpeak channel where people are just in and out every day, and you don't really know who's on your team anymore. And not knocking a bigger team, that there's good points to that too. You got a lot of people working, and if you have a good group of people, then if you got a big team, you're really going to be hard to stop.
Sure.
But we've had the same core group of people for 2.5 years now, and I don't think a lot of teams can really say that. They always go through a change of some sort. They merge with somebody, or a bunch of people leave and form their own team. I mean, I've been on enough teams to know how that works. So J Show's a great place to be, and I couldn't really see myself being anywhere else at this point. I'm just like stuck there. Even if the performance wasn't there in the future, I really don't know if I could go anywhere else at this point.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, and again, you guys have done well, and having that core is nice too, because again,
Absolutely.
you have a lot of commitment and faith in each other. So you started off with no goal, 0 odds of chance of doing anything. I'm assuming with that you didn't have a lot of pressure on yourself.
Nope.
At some point, you find yourself at the lead. Did that change? Did suddenly being in the lead come with a lot of added pressure that you didn't expect?
I knew after Pocono, when we figured some stuff out and were really, really, really good, I knew that the rest of the year was going to be different than I first envisioned it to be. So the pressure built a little bit. But I don't know. I don't see myself as being somebody who doesn't work well under pressure. The last race of the year, when I had to perform at my best, I went out and set a personal best in qualifying and got the pole. So I figure that's a pretty good testament to what I can do under pressure. But it's always good not to have any pressure, because you might race a little bit more aggressively or put your car into a situation that maybe you wouldn't before. And I think I did that a couple times this year. But yeah, definitely after Watkins Glen, when the chase started and I had a 25-point lead, there was a little bit of pressure taken off, because I had a decent sized lead. But I knew I had Ray and Nick Ottinger back there, and they're always extremely fast. So I knew at that point that I wasn't a part-timer anymore. I was going for the championship, $10,000, all the accolades that go with it. So I knew that there was a lot resting on my shoulders. But I had a great group of people around me, again, which helped a lot, kind of diffused the pressure. They kept me calm. We kind of have like crew chiefs and stuff in the races. Anybody that would be on the box, if you want to call it,
Right.
would always keep me calm and do a good job of that. So, I think we performed well. Like the last couple races of the year, when we could have played fuel mileage, which probably would have been the safer bet, maybe would have won the race at Darlington and Atlanta. I wanted to go for the win. The car is fast. I said, I'm not going to sit around and putt around for 170 laps or whatever it was. I want to go out there and run this car for what it's worth, and I did that, and maybe gave up a few points to Ray in doing that, but I was still there to have fun. I was going to win the championship, but I wasn't going to start changing my whole mindset just to be like a points racer. I was going for wins the whole year and wasn't going to change that, so
Right.
I didn't want to change anything that was obviously working the rest of the year, so just leave that alone.
Yeah. Well, and you answered a question I already had, or I had for you here, which is, did it actually end up changing the way you race? And it sounds like it did a little bit at times, but for the most part, you were just going to do your thing and race the way you race.
Absolutely, yeah. I couldn't bring myself to start racing like at 90% just to get points. I was out there. I had the best cars in the field at Darlington and Atlanta, and I was gonna use them to their fullest potential. So
awesome, very awesome. So take me through a typical race week. I mean, not every last detail, but I mean, you guys finished the week before. I'm assuming you cool down a little bit. When does work begin for the next week in a DWC world?
I mean, it all depends. Because we have 2 weeks in between each race, Tuesday to Tuesday. It all depends. If we run extremely poor in a race, which we really didn't do last year, but in 2013, when we'd run really bad, I'd find myself testing the next track immediately after the race, just starting to run laps, throwing stuff at the car in the garage, just trying to figure out anything that I could do to make the car better. This year, for the most part, if we raced on a Tuesday, we'd take Wednesday, Thursday off, and then get back at it on Friday. There we go. On Friday, and test on Friday. Saturday, Sunday didn't really test too much, and then throughout the next week, that was like the main week for us. The second week, we test a little bit Monday, a little bit Tuesday. Maybe 3 or 4 days out of the 5 days in the main week we would test. But it would total up to sometimes over 16, 17 hours. So a ton of time. Sometimes it would be more than that. And again, when you only have 2 people and you split that in 2, it's a lot more than if you split it in 10 or 8. So it's a ton of time. And between that and school and sports, sometimes it's just extremely difficult. So people underestimate the amount of time it takes in this series. A lot of guys just want to grab a setup and go out there and be the best. And I think maybe that's a little bit easier on the road side, where the driver comes into it a little bit more, and you can kind of do things differently on a road course than you can an oval. An oval, the setup at this point, I feel, is like 80% and the driver's 20%, where a road racing series might be a little bit more 60-40. Again, I'm not a road racer, so that might come off as like ignorant or completely wrong to like one of the road DWC guys, but that's just the way I see it. And I might be wrong, but as far as what I know in the Oval Series, it's definitely an 80-20 split. That's a little bit disappointing. I'd like to see more driver come into it, but I think when we get like dynamic tracks and the tires falling off board and having the car change throughout a run, it might start off as 80-20, but by the time your tires are worn out and the bottom's all, junky and rubbery and you have to go somewhere else to find grip, it might be more 50-50 or 60-40. So
yeah, I can see that. That would be great, and it might evolve exactly there. So you mentioned your time split, or at least the percentage of driver versus setup. Does that mean that leading up to the race that 80% of your time is working on setup versus about 20% being spent on actually driving? We try, every time we make an adjustment, we try to go on the track and test it out. At least I feel like I can do better when I am working on the car and driving it too. It's very difficult, especially for Tom, to try to make changes for me and not actually drive the car. You can't really get a good feeling what the car is doing, and you're only going off of feedback that I'm giving him. So when I'm making adjustments, I think it's easier, because I can go out there, I can make an adjustment, I know what I adjusted, I know what the car did to react to that adjustment, and I can kind of figure out what to do to maybe make it better, or go back on that adjustment, or try to do something else. So once we get the line down at a track, and I think I've done that, I've been on iRacing for 4 or 5 years now, so I've been at these tracks many times over and over again, so I think I've got the line down pretty well. So it's not really me when we're testing, or really anybody in DWC for that point. It's just trying to get the car as optimal as possible for that line that is going to be the preferred line in the race. Absolutely. Okay. All right. I'm going to change topics a little bit, and then I want to talk to you a little bit more about winning the championship and everything that came with it. You just a minute ago said, "Oh, I'm no road racer." I did a little research on you, and that's not exactly true. I mean, you're an A-licensed road racer. You have you have 40 wins, and your winning percentage, funny enough, is only 3% lower than your oval winning percentage, which to me sounds like quite a decent road racer. So my question to you is, you mentioned a little bit with the setup. What do you think the biggest differences are in being like a champion level road racer versus being a champion level oval racer?
I think it takes, for somebody like me who's not a road racer by nature, it would take a lot longer for me to try to adapt to a car and optimize my skills for that car. Like, let's take the F1 car, for example. Anytime I find myself in that car, I'm a good 6 or 7 seconds off the pace. Okay, that's absolutely miserable, terrible, and doesn't deserve whatever I rating I have or any safety rating, because I'm absolutely atrocious in it. Because, I mean, an F1 car and a Gen 6 car, they're just like the most two different things in the world. There's no similarities between them. So I can hold my own in a cup car at a road course. I feel like I'm one of the best at that. We went to Watkins Glen for the first time this year in the NPAS, and I won, and I think I led all but 2 laps. I've cut my teeth on a cup car at Watkins Glen ever since NASCAR 2003 when I first started sim racing. So that's always been like my favorite combination. But as far as taking an F1 car to any course that they go to and trying to compete with the best guys, I mean, you could probably give me a race-winning DWC setup in an F1 car, I'd still be way off the pace. So I think it's easier for a road driver, a road DWC driver maybe, just take them for example, to come in to an oval series and perform well because if they're already a very good driver. If you can drive a road course, you can drive an oval. I know there's always a big debate about which is harder, but I'm sorry, I'm an oval driver and I'm saying this. It's harder to drive on a road course. There's more you have to do. You have to shift. There's more braking points, apexes, different, banking changes, camber changes, uphill, downhill. I mean, there's a lot more to take into account when you're driving on a road course than an oval. Now, when ovals, when you have a dynamic track on an oval and more fall off, then, it gets a little bit closer. But right now, apples to apples, road course racing is harder. So for them to come into an oval series, I think it's a little bit easier for somebody like me to go into one of their series with an open wheel car. Me in a tin top car, however, I think I'd do pretty decent. If you put me in a GT3 car or, anything that's kind of big, like a V8 supercar, like I can go into that and do pretty decent. But it's still tough. Like, I mean, the stats are very deceiving for me on a road course. Some cars I'm okay, and like I said, some cars I'm pretty atrocious, and I won't lie to you about that.
I understand, and I can see the differences, everything you described, but I'd also say that despite maybe learning the 2 or 4 corners of an oval might be quicker and easier, and those guys can come over, there's no comparing the door-to-door racing, the nose-to-tail racing, and
Correct.
That's an art and a skill that takes a lot. I mean, driving the track is one thing, racing oval is a whole different ballpark, ball game now. So with that, I'm assuming you have no visions of road glory and being any kind of dual champion.
Nope. No, I don't know how Ray and Rich Towler and all them back a couple years ago did both series. That's a huge time commitment, and I mean it just shows that their talents are multifaceted. It's really tough to just be good at one series and to be competitive in both of them, which they both were. That's truly amazing. I give those guys a lot of credit for what they did. That's a lot of talent right there.
Absolutely. So when it comes to the races each week, how much, what kind of strategy planning do you do beforehand, or is it really all on the fly?
I don't think we have enough people to worry about strategy before the race. We have to get the cars as fast as possible, and when you have a fast car, then the strategy just kind of falls into place. Like I said, a couple races toward the tail end of the year, we that there were going to be fuel mileage races if they went caution-free, which they did somehow. I don't know how we went caution-free at Darlington or one caution, but we did. So that's pretty impressive. But we kind of figured out in the race. Like I said, I have somebody watching or a few people watching and keeping track of my fuel usage and tires and adjustments and all that. So I rely on them heavily to try to figure out what the best strategy is. And the last couple of races of the year, we knew that there was fuel mileage on the table, but I kind of overrode that and said, I want to drive the car, I want to have fun, I want to go fast. That's it. I mean, simple as that. So, even some of the best strategies, sometimes I find that I override because I just don't want to do it. And sometimes it ends up working, and sometimes it doesn't. But, it's hard to go into a race with a set strategy that you're going to deal with. Maybe with an F1 race, because you don't have, in iRacing, there are no full course cautions for the F1 guys, so you can kind of figure out when you're going to pit, exactly how much fuel you're going to take, and whatever else goes into that. But with the cautions in the NASCAR series, it's always changing. It's very dynamic, so you really can't go into a race and say, I'm going to do this, this, and that, and actually have it happen. 9 out of the 10 times it's not going to happen. So, we just, like I said, we work on getting the cars fast, we work on not crashing, getting to the end of the race, and that's basically all we can do.
That's the winning recipe right there, everybody. So, okay, let's go ahead and move forward a little bit. I mean, obviously everybody's got the point now. You are this year's champion, and with that comes a lot of exciting things. one thing I want to address right before we really move on to Homestead, as I'll call it. I did watch the interview you did with iRacing, and you mentioned the catalyst, the beginning of all of your sim racing was really your dad buying you a game and a wheel, and then having to teach you to use the brake. So my first question is racing like in your blood? Is this a family thing? Was he a racing fan, that's why he did it? Or did he just have a hunch this would be something you'd be into?
Yeah, we've always been into cars. I don't really hasn't been any actual pro race car drivers in my family, at least that I know of. But my dad built muscle cars back in the day, so he would build a 1957 Chevy. He'd tell me about, like, I don't know how you would even start to do that. I'm more theoretical. He's more hands-on mechanical. That's how we always compare the two. But yeah, he's always been into cars. He drag raced a little bit, just with the cars that he would build, and he had like I said, he had a bunch of muscle cars that he'd tell me about that he'd get in a lot of trouble with. So that's the one good thing about sim racing. You can't get speeding tickets or get into trouble. But anyway,
yeah,
right, yeah. So he was a car fan in general, so I guess he figured that I'd like it too. I remember watching NASCAR races with him when I was 3 or 4 in a high chair. Just kind of sitting there and being amazed about what was going on. I'd see cars passing each other and see the plate races and just crazy stuff going on. It was exciting to me. So for my 5th birthday, they got me NASCAR 2002 and a wheel that didn't work, so I ended up using the keyboard. And then finally we got the buttons in the wheel to work, so I used the buttons as the gas and brake. Still had no pedals though. Learned to shift a little bit back then. And like I said, the majority of my time on there was spent racing the Cup car at Watkins Glen. That was our favorite combination. We would work on the setup, we would change the gears, we would do a bunch of stuff to it, and that's what really got me hooked. It wasn't really any of the ovals. I'm really surprised that I'm an oval racer at this point because I like the road course stuff better when I started. So from there we went to NASCAR 2003. Computer wasn't really up to snuff for that, so we got off of that, went to the console for quite a few years, got into a league on the PlayStation 2008 or 9 with NASCAR 9. Again, an arcade game, but it was with actual people for the first time. I had never run in an online multiplayer environment before, so that was interesting to see how I would match up to people, again, much older than me and much more experienced, and got really good at that and started beating them, and kind of got drove out of there. They thought I was hacking on the PlayStation. So what's new, right? That's always the excuse. So I kind of
every alien is always accused of hacking, of course.
And again, you ask anybody, I have about as little computer knowledge as possible, so I don't know how you would even begin to do that, especially with the PlayStation. But anyway, so I got out of there, and that kind of led me to iRacing, which was a good thing. You take a bad thing and turn it into a good thing. Them kind of driving me out and me leaving brought me over to iRacing. So like I said, started in 09, got into pro in 2011, and won a championship in 2014. So it took 12 years to win a championship. That's it's a pretty long time. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but we'll say it's a good thing. And I mean, only 5 people have done it, as far as the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. So I'm in a pretty elite group here, and the people before me, I give them the most credit that they could deserve. Rich Taller was awesome when he was on here. I wish he'd come back because he was one of the best. Him,
He's
Derek
a legend.
Wood.
He's a legend.
All of them. Those are the guys that I wish were still in the series now.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to anybody that's there now, because I mean they're all great, but I want to get in a race with Derek Wood and Richard Taller and John Prather in his prime and all these guys that were just blowing the doors off everybody 10 years ago, maybe it was now 5, 6, 7 years ago. I'd like to get into a race with them and see what would happen, but they're all doing their thing now, and they're all grown up, I guess, and they're in their lives. I guess sim racing doesn't fit in at this point, but it's all good.
It happens.
Yeah.
All right, so you win the championship. With that comes an invitation to Homestead. Hey, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. So Homestead, everything's going on for all of NASCAR's finale, for the season. And at some moment at time, they call your name on the PA, the main announcer, and you walk out on stage. What was that like? I mean,
it's definitely a surreal feeling when you finally get to that point, because For many people, sim racing is just sim racing. You know, you get on your computer, you get with your buddies, you race, you have a good time. For me, it actually led to something else, something bigger, to get on a NASCAR stage in front of thousands of people all in front of you cheering. I'm not sure they knew what they were cheering for at the time, but they were cheering, so that's good. They weren't booing or being silent, so they were cheering. That was good, but it was just crazy. Just being backstage and seeing, you know, Dillner and Jamie Little and all these big, you know, personalities in the media world walking around and doing their thing. That was pretty cool. And getting up on stage with Clint Boyer and Otto was fun too. I didn't know Boyer was going to be there until I got down there, so that was a little bit of a surprise. And it was a fun experience. I mean, there's a lot going on. Never got to really stop and take it in, I don't think, but you can. I mean, we had really 2 days to get down there and do everything that we had to do, and we did it. And I think everything turned out pretty well. No major problems. You know, nothing really went too bad. So the stage presentation looked good. I watched that back. Hopefully iRacing puts that footage out at some point. I know they didn't include it in the video, which is a little bit disappointing, but I'm sure that'll be out there at some point. But I watched the video that my parents took, so I got to see what I look like and didn't look too dumb. So that was good. So we looked good on the stage. Got the trophy, got the ring, which I really haven't taken off since I got it, because it's an awesome deal. Here it is.
Can we see it? Can we see it? Oh, you took it off.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, you got these crystal thingies in here, diamonds. I don't know what they are. You know,
it's the
I'm
real
a guy.
deal, though.
I know it's not fake. Like, you know, people ask me at work, "Oh, is that a class ring?" No. Oh, where's that from? Oh, I won a NASCAR championship. A NASCAR championship? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, well, this isn't a piece of junk. Like, this is, you know, this is legit right here. So it's a good story.
Can you believe you're saying those words? I mean,
it's pretty cool, and it's frustrating too. They keep saying that Chase Elliott's the youngest NASCAR champion. It's like, no, I am. All right.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So from the weekend, is there any best memory that just sticks out to you?
Oh man, it's such a blur at this point. Gosh. I don't know. It was cool meeting a couple people. Got to meet Rutledge and Jamie Little, and talk to Josh Wise for a few minutes. Just walking through the garage area and taking in the sights and the smells of everything, which I never had a hot pass before, so I never got to do anything like that. Walking through there and just seeing drivers a couple feet away from you doing their work, and, you know, communicating with crew chiefs and getting to look under cars and look at the track bars and seeing what everybody was doing is kind of cool to me, because I'm interested in the mechanical side of that stuff too. And it was just awesome being in the suite. After you watch a race from a suite, I don't know how you could ever go back to the grandstands. It's just such a much better experience. You've got air conditioning, TVs, food, you know, whatever you want up there, and it's hard to it'd be hard to go back, but it was just a great experience.
Yeah.
Like I said, there was a lot going on. There's a lot packed into a couple days. I wish we had more time down there to do other things and,
Right.
you know, maybe rest a little bit, enjoy Miami, because, you know, I'm back up here in New Jersey. It's snowing out, so I would have liked to enjoy the 85-degree weather a little bit more. But it was definitely a fun experience that not a lot of people get to do. So I feel privileged to be able to be a part of that.
Absolutely. So what was it like? Your dad was there with you. I saw. What was it like for him? I mean, he's watching his son, his 17-year-old son, walk up on stage in front of thousands of people and be crowned a NASCAR champion. I mean,
yeah,
did he make any comments to you?
No, he's not. He's pretty reserved when it comes to that stuff. I know he was proud. I know he was having a good time. You know, you can tell in the video. You know, he's cheering along with everybody else. You know, louder than everybody else, blowing the speakers out of the old camcorder. But you know, he was having fun. You know, it's got to be cool for him. When he got me into this 12 years ago now, I don't think he could have ever imagined that we'd get to this point and you know, be crowned an actual NASCAR champion, like an official NASCAR champion.
The ring to prove it.
A ring to prove it. You know, not a league champion or within a game champion, sanctioned NASCAR champion. That's awesome. You know, people always say, well, it's not real though. Well, yes, it is real. It might be sim racing, but the racing's real. The people that I'm competing against are real. The rivalries are real. The emotions are real. Everything is real about it. except for, we're doing all of this through a computer instead of an actual car. Everything that you would do in a NASCAR race is done through the game, through DWC, through the Peak Antifreeze series. So
absolutely. So do you still have the big check? What do you do with the giant check?
The big check was a little bit of a disappointment, actually. A little story to go along with that. I guess when UPS shipped it, they folded it, so it kind of got damaged. So if you look at the pictures from the presentation, there is no check, unfortunately. I do have the check with me. We've flattened it out. We've kind of massaged it a little bit. It looks okay. We're gonna try to take a small video of that with the trophies in front of it and the check to get that out to everybody, because I know everybody was asking, "Where's the check? Where's the check?" Like, I was more excited about the check than anything else. That's cool. Like, you get this massive check that doesn't really mean anything. You can't cash it, but no. So we've kind of fixed that a little bit. So we're going to get a video out of that as soon as we can, probably after the holidays here. Right. We're all said and done with, but. It's just, I love going to school. I haven't been in school the past couple of days. I haven't really felt well. I haven't been able to hear anything out of my right ear. I don't know what's going on. So I've been a little bit discombobulated, so I'm glad that I'm good enough to do this right now. I was worried about that. But, the couple of days after that I was at school, just walking around with this ring on, it's just awesome. Nobody else in school can say that they're a NASCAR champion. You have your... No. Varsity football players and your varsity this and your varsity that. Okay, I'm a junior varsity tennis player, okay? Technically, that's not very good, but at least it's some sort of varsity. But I'm a NASCAR champion. Yeah. So I can go around, are you a NASCAR champion? No. Are you a NASCAR champion? No. So it's it's cool. It's definitely cool. That's the best part about it. The attention that this ring brings. It's just an awesome thing to have accomplished at 17 too. I mean, absolutely. It's I could have never imagined that, before I reached 18 I would be a NASCAR champion. Never could have imagined that. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It's
phenomenal accomplishment. I'm blown away and well done. Just an incredible job, and congratulations on all that. It's amazing. So you don't have to answer this question, but any plans for the $10,000? Does that have anything in mind?
I'd like to answer that. Yeah, perfect time to answer that. We have been trying last year especially, and now going to this year, to get me in a legend car out of North Carolina, because I've exhausted everything I can do in sim racing now. As far as the oval side goes, I've got to the top. It's time to get into a real car and see what exactly translates over from the simulation world to the real world, because I have never driven anything more than a Bandolero, and a Bandolero is just a go-kart with a body on it. So whoop-de-doo. A legend car is actually like, something that's going to be a challenge to drive, because the power to weight ratio is so crazy. The thing just breaks the tires loose in third gear. So that's what our plans are. Now, realistically, I'm not going to take all of that money and dump it into a legend car and then run out of money and then be nowhere. So right now we're working extremely hard to try to find sponsorship. We've got a few leads. We've got a few people that we're trying to get on board, but definitely still looking for one or two people to be kind enough to fund this deal and see exactly what happens. I think what I'm trying to do as far as the oval side goes is unprecedented at this point. No NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series champion, after they won the championship, I've tried to go directly into a car without actually driving a car before. Tyler Hudson had driven a super truck. Right. I don't think Rich really went anywhere with it. Ray, I know, drove a Miata, but I don't really know if that got too far. I'm trying to make it somewhere in the sport. Like, I just don't want to do this as a hobby. This isn't like a fly-by-night, ooh, I want to be a race car driver deal. Like, this is, I've wanted to be a race car driver since I can remember. And all these years, sim racing has been all that I've been able to do. It's been fun, it's been great, but I've always wanted more. I've always wanted to be a stepping
stone. You said that at the very beginning. You even mentioned that.
Absolutely, and I feel like I've done everything I can do to get to the top and make the most of that stepping stone. So, I hope that we can sell enough people on this story that iRacing and other sims like it are good enough of a training tool to take somebody directly from there without any prior real world experience, get them in a car and have them acclimate quickly. I know Dale Jr. a couple years ago at Ray's press conference after he won the 2011 championship talked about taking a kid at 4 or 5 years old, training them on the sim for many years, and then putting them into a race car, and he felt that they could become a champion. And every time I listen to that, I'm like, I'm right here. Like, that's exactly what I did. That's what my parents did. We've known that for many years now. Now it's time to get that out into the world, sell that story to people, and see who we can get to fund us. So that's definitely the platform that we're on at this point. We're definitely going to get a test in with a Legend Car sponsorship or not. It's got to be done. I have to get in the car somehow. But as far as actually racing, a schedule, a decent schedule, maybe 10 or 12 races during the summer in 2015, definitely need to get some people to back that. So we're going to work as hard as we can to do that. Like I said, we've got a couple leads, but nothing too big right now. But just hoping that everything that comes from the championship, all the media exposure and doing interviews with people like yourself and trying to get my name out there even more, we're hoping that it'll turn to something really good.
Absolutely. And I'll give you my pitch on this as well. If you look at like the GT Academy and the success ratio of the guys they've promoted into real racing, and quite honestly, and not to take anything away from Gran Turismo, but those guys haven't done half as much as what it takes to get to where you're at in the iRacing Championship. And again, those guys are accomplished in their own way.
Absolutely.
And they prove themselves on the track, which is what's most important. But with what you've gone through or any of the other champions before you, no one's really taken these guys and given them the same opportunities as Gran Turismo Academy had to really see what they could do in the real world. And all of you, and yourself being the youngest one ever, are even the best candidate ever for that type of I don't even want to call it an experiment. Proving ground is a better wording. Right. So, Dale, any other influential people in NASCAR oval racing, this would be a great thing. I'd love to see it, and hopefully when you get your chance to test out the legends, you have a blast and really can see what you can do there, first of all. And when I go to Irwindale, they're one of my favorite cars to watch. So I know you're going to have a blast. I'd love to drive that. Awesome story, Michael. This has been a lot of fun. Before I let you go, is there anybody you want to thank? I mean, it's been a long 12-year road for you. Anybody you want to thank for all of this or to help you get along?
It sure has, and I've got my list right here because I'm not going to forget anybody this time. I'm going to keep that right there. Okay, of course, Main Performance PC. Michael Main has been a big part in my DWC success the last couple of years. He's always given me whatever I've needed. He's done it. Graphics cards, wheels, pedals, really good pedals too, for nothing. So I can't thank him enough. His pedals, they're coming out. So anybody that's watching that wants a really, really good pair of pedals, go check out mainperformancepc.com. They're awesome. The RCRL.com shirt that I'm wearing, awesome league on the iRacing service. They've been a supporter of Jay Show as a team the last couple of years, so that's been cool to represent them. Jeremy Lukaska has been a personal supporter of mine. That's his Twitter @Jeremy_Lukaska. Butto Gaming Cockpit, SegPay, Garrett Smithley Racing, JDR Graphics for making my cars pretty. Last couple of years, I've loved my cars. I'm actually trying to get some die casts made of my DWC cars, but it's tough to pin these people down that you find on the internet. It's like, you tell them, I'll give you like $120, $150 to make me a car, and they just don't respond. It's like, come on, I'll throw a lot of money at you, but whatever. Yeah. We're going to keep working on that too. JDR Graphics, Speed 77 Race Chaser, Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker have done a lot to try to promote me the last couple of years actually. So thanks to them. Everybody at Jay's Show since 2012, Tom Lewandowski, Danny Hansen, Brian Schoenberg, Jason Loafing, David Ankeny, Brandon Hastings, Garrett Smithley, Greg Spears, and Carson Downs for all of their continued support. When I read off that list, it sounds like we're a lot bigger than I thought we were. But a lot of those guys are not really involved in the DWC. They're just kind of there to hang out and have fun. So that's cool too.
I know a handful of those guys are RCRL guys. I know I've met them at iRace for Life.
Yeah. So they're definitely. I think Brian and maybe was it Brian? I think Brian and Danny were at the last iRace for Life, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'll get to go down next year too. I'll have to see. I'm sure the people at school aren't very happy about the time that I'm taking off here to pursue all this, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and like I've been saying, I've got to make the most of this now while all this is going on. This is the time to get all this stuff done and take all the opportunities that I can, make the most of them. So hopefully the attendance office at school understands that. I'm sure when I get back Monday, we'll go talk to them and see what's going on down there. But we're having a good time with it.
Thing. You can show them the ring. You can show them the ring.
Show them the ring. Bring in the trophies. All the media packet that was in the NASCAR Media Center. All that stuff. Here you go. What do I need to do to not get in trouble here? But no, I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this with me. I appreciate it. Been a big fan of your show ever since you broke off, and even back in the Inside Sim Racing days, I enjoyed watching and learning about new hardware that was coming out or games. I'd watch the reviews, and it was always a good time watching all that stuff. So I can't believe I'm here. I can't say that enough. I can't believe that I actually won this thing. Like I said, going into the year, I was a part-timer, and I come out as a champion. So, who would have known it? I guess for anybody out there, if you're going for a championship, just take the pressure off yourself, and you'll most likely do better. I guess that's what happened with us. Maybe we just got lucky. We figured out the car, and it was a coincidence, but either way, it worked. So, just do what I did, I guess. Just be a part-timer and then just run all the races.
just dive in. Just don't give it too much thought. Just do it. Oh, Michael, again, fascinating story. It's 12 years, and here you are. I'm again, my hat's off to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And great story, and great things that went on getting you to here, and maybe not even the approach anyone would ever imagine. So I'm sure a lot of people take a lot away from this. So thank you once again.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So that's Michael Conti, everyone. This year's NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series champion, and a great guy, great story behind him. I'm Sean Cole. This is the Simpit, and I'll see you on the track.